lengthen the lineup, then shorten the leash. Leader Fan Radio Network.
Tweet that.
And KFAN.com. 2 minutes and 2 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock Central Standard Time. Welcome back. It is a midweek Wednesday edition of the Bumper to Bumper program on a rather murky, rather moist, chilly, rainy Wednesday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. I am the host of the program. My name is Dan Barreiro. Guardsy is the producer of the program. We will be with you, I think, the distance tonight, 6:30 this evening?
Yes, sir.
We're going the distance again, and we have a power-packed broadcast that I think will be up to the task between now and 6:30 this evening. Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line remains rebooted and available to you now if you want to reach out at 64686. That's 64686. Are you familiar with a daytime game show host named Chuck Woolery?
Yeah, we'll be back in 2 and 2.
He was the 2 and 2 guy.
Love Connection guy.
I wonder how many, that's what he would say. So when I always think of Chuck when we are starting at 2 minutes and 2 seconds, because that was the back in 2 and 2. Chuck Woolery was With It and Wow guy back then. How many of the kids would even know that name? 10%? 20? Maybe a little more than that.
Younger than me?
Chuck Woolery.
Probably 20.
Is he still alive? Is Chuck still with us?
I'm Googling him as we speak. I figured that was coming.
Chuck was Dating... What were the... No, not Dating Game.
I thought he was Love Connection.
He was Love Connection. That's right. That's what it was. But I want to say he also did some game shows, too, over the course of his career.
He did Wheel of Fortune originally.
Okay.
Scrabble. Did a show on Fox called Greed for a couple of years.
Greed. I don't even remember that one.
Lingo on the Game Show Network.
Lingo, you say.
And he still is with us.
How old would Chuck be? Any clue?
Yeah, he's in his 80s. He's 83.
Huh. I hope he's doing well and is in good health and is enjoying his retirement years. I really do.
He'll be back in 2 and 2.
Back in 2 and 2. That's exactly correct. Guest lineup today. We don't have Chuck Woolery, but we do have Glen Mason.
Speaking of Love Connection.
That's true. At the bottom of this hour, correct? Louis, who generally joins us on Tuesdays, he needed to move to today, so he'll be with us at 4:30. You think Mace is on the road again. We know Louis is on the road.
Yep.
And we expect Kessler will be in studio, one would assume, unless he's still got more Channel 4 reality check duties that keep him from here.
I think he's officially retired.
You think he's re-retired?
I think it's over now. I think Emeritus is done. I think he's had it.
Yeah.
It's art history time.
Well, there's plenty to get to. The cabinet announcements are coming fast and furious for Donald J. Trump. I
can't keep up with them.
The latest is the one that is getting the most attention. Is it Gates? Is it Matt Gates? Not Link Gates. Didn't the North Stars have a player named Link Gates? This is Matt Gates.
Oh, the Florida rep.
That's correct. Who, last I knew, was under investigation for a while for sex trafficking.
Yeah, only with underage kids.
Okay. But
yeah.
And maybe he was already cleared of that. I don't know. That's going to probably come up with Kessler when we chat at 5:30, if not sooner. But, they're coming fast and furious at this point with the new president. I think officially, well, I shouldn't say this because it's a mixed bag. Some of the appointments are being received with a sigh of relief. Others, like the latest, in the case of there's even some Republicans. Was it Tommy Tuberville?
Yeah, the old football coach.
Basically said, really? Really doing that? So there's a wide range, one could say, based on the names that have been revealed to this point. So that is the Borton Volvo guest lineup for today. 3:30, 4:30, and 5:30 guests. I mentioned the text line, which is 64686. It appears that the Daubers are down for many Minnesota Timberwolves fans who stayed up late enough to watch the club play with its food pretty much start to finish against the Portland Trailblazers. That's the first of a back-to-backer with Portland. And Portland was up without Well, it started the game without one of its starters, lost another starter during the game. I think it was Hardaway, wasn't it? And they had still no difficulty beating up on us and dominating us.
In the first round of group play in the NBA Cup.
That's it. That's exactly it. So that dream's probably already died.
Yes.
There was a lot of speculation that part of the reason that Finchie stayed with the starters as long as he did was, well, point totals matter, and
differential.
Maybe we got to try to bring that differential. Maybe that differential will be saved enough to where we'll have a chance to be a play-in participant.
Credit to Michael Grady, who wanted none of it last night as that was going on, as they were keeping the starters in, as Finchie was challenging a play down $1 million with like 2.6 seconds left.
Yes.
Grady wanted none of it. He was ready
I fell asleep
to go to bed. Unfortunately, I was watching it.
You were watching it.
I was brooding. Was that the word?
Brooding is a correct word.
I was brooding.
That fits.
Grady had enough of it. But yes, the dreaded point differential. Didn't think that was going to come into play against Portland. The Blazers, who lost by 60 3 nights ago, or 2 nights ago, whatever it was.
Yeah, and we killed them the game here. We dominated them as well. So here's I'm not ready to lose my mind to the degree that even Johnny Athletic is, or maybe you, because I can't yet, given the date. I don't like what I saw. I'm not interested in making excuses for what I saw. We got into the subject heavily after you had to do your basketball duties, go for women's hoops, and had to head over to the barn with Tom Crean about the turnover issue, particularly as it pertained to Anthony Edwards, because we tend to ask Crean, who coached Edwards in college, a lot of Edwards questions. So, I'm already on record of my belief that my greatest exasperation is with the sloppiness with the basketball, for which there is no excuse. 5 players who've never played together are not obligated to commit stupid, lazy-ass turnovers. I don't care if they've spent, like I said, 12 years together or 12 minutes together. One thing for me, it can explain a lot of other things, right? Ball movement, whether you're getting the shots that you want, even, helping each other out defensively. Yeah, that can be an issue if you're not used to playing together. Just turning the ball over recklessly because you're not paying attention, you shouldn't have anything to do with that. And that's why I continue to be bugged by it. And they had I think there was like their 3rd straight game of over 20 turnovers. I think they had 23 last night, which doesn't even seem possible at the professional basketball level. We're like 5th or 6th worst in the NBA per game. I think we're averaging 16 or 17 a game. And lately we've been over 20. That's the part that I literally can't stand. But I will say that I do think I would like to see, as I mentioned in the open, if you're asking me what we should do, I really do think Finchie should almost start over from a lineup standpoint. And I don't mean that means he's got to play 5 new starters. I mean, whatever he thinks he had in place about how many I was going to try to put in my rotation, which already was adjusted downward, right, once the season began. I think he should get together with Tim Connolly, the whole staff, and rethink all of it. I actually think more players should be playing. I know that's counterintuitive. You say, well, how do any of them get in a rhythm? You got to have your main guys get in a rhythm. I honestly don't care about that right now because I'm not sure that matters. I'm not sure they're going to get in that kind of rhythm. So I actually, depending on matchups, circumstances, feel of the game, would be fine if he went Golden State. Golden State's playing 15 guys, and there's only 12 on a roster, and off to a very good start. I honestly think that everybody should be put in the hopper, potentially, right now. I'm being serious. I think there's enough talent to try to do that. On the other hand, I also think once you do it in an odd sort of way, then you shorten the leash. And if you can't refrain from committing stupid turnovers, come sit by me. I hate that. It's 8th grade stuff. It's not supposed to work at the NBA level, but it's untenable. How many even in the first half, maybe in the first quarter, how many extra possessions Portland had. It doesn't matter who you're playing. The Wolves could be playing a college team, and you can't give that team that many. It's like, 10, 11, 12 extra possessions in a quarter. That's mindless. That's just not caring enough. And I think that means Finchie's going to have to be a little bit more of a hard ass. He talks tough with us, with the reporters. His reputation is he's direct and willing to confront players. But I don't see it, because I don't see any fear about, well, if I keep just dribbling out of bounds, or I dribble to the sideline, look up, and the ball's out of my hands, that I'm going to, doesn't matter, I'm still going to play. I don't think that can work at this point, can it?
That part can't, and I would add the defensive part of it as well.
Oh.
You
know where that starts, too, don't you?
Julius Randle?
It does.
Yeah, I watched him in a late possession last night just stand on the block and do nothing.
It does.
He just stood there.
It's a problem.
I don't love it.
It's a problem.
And it's permeating through other guys.
Yes.
The Blazers shot 51%.
He's deceptive, because then there'll be a couple plays. Oh,
yes.
A nice stretch. But it's not consistent.
It's not
consistent enough at all.
The Miami game, when they got back into it and took the lead, it was because of his defense in a big part of it.
Correct.
And last night, and he wasn't the only culprit last night, the Blazers shot 51.2%.
Not even at full strength, Blazers. The team,
undermanned
as the
Blazers,
cliche says, is 2 years away from being 2 years away. Still without their regular lineup. Still did this to us.
And made 18 three-pointers. 18 three-pointers. The NBA was giving us a road to Vegas for the NBA Cup with our pool. When we looked at it in the summer.
That's true.
I think the Clippers were the second best team. I don't know who the other ones are. But you had Portland in your pool. All you had to do was handle Portland to get yourself in a good spot. And I know the NBA Cup doesn't matter, but I feel like for the Wolves it should. They should be in the statement-making, this group. They should be in the group that cares about it. And last night was ridiculous.
Let's try to put $1,000 in somebody's hand right now. Maybe that'll make us all feel better.
Use it to buy Wolves tickets.
There you go.
The Fan and 2 men and a junk
Prices
truck.
are going to be coming down soon at this rate.
Seriously. They want to give you a shot. 2 men and a junk truck. Want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand. It is our national cash contest. You can enter the keyword. What day is today? Wednesday? Check at KFAN.com. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword check.
Clock hour continues. Don't forget, Glen Mason will join us at the bottom of this hour. Mace in your face, Louis in the 4, and Kessler in the 5 o'clock hour. 64686 is the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line for those who are so inclined. The challenge always with because of the nature of any of our sports seasons, especially the lengthy ones, baseball, and certainly even, basketball and hockey, is when it's okay to sort of lose your mind, and when it ends up being something you feel foolish about 2 or 3 weeks later. And you say, well, there's ups and there's downs. It wasn't good, but it's not really relevant to what this team is going to become. I think in this case, I understand more of the fear and loathing because it is a new group. And on the other hand, you could say, well, that in itself is why you need to be more patient with it, that it's not as likely. That's the comeback. But as I said, some of what I'm seeing, I don't see the same personality that I saw last year. And that's a little weird in that, Edwards is obviously still here. Most of the players are still here. Karl Anthony Towns is not, right? That's the big one.
Right.
I guess you could say slow-mo to a degree, who from a defensive, I think as he got longer in the tooth, you're playing the trade-off game with him. There were so many games where he had become such an offensive liability that it was harder to just be able to continue to play him despite what you knew about what he could be as a glue guy defensively, right? You can use him inside, you can use him outside. One of the smartest players in the league. Do I feel like they're missing a little of the way he connects things defensively? Yeah, I do. But I just don't see the stuff that does concern me has less to do with, well, we're just learning to play together, and more with, at various times, just dedication to the bit, effort. It may well be that you have to, if you're going to be realistic, come to grips with the fact that this team is not built to be quite as good defensively as it was a year ago, right? The question is, how much slippage can you allow? You know, can you go from 1 to 12? Is that too far? I think it probably is in terms of defensive efficiency. On the other hand, I think on paper, you think it certainly looks, there's times where it looks like this team offensively has a chance to have a lot of 142-point nights, right? A lot of options. So this whole early part of the season, I think, is all about trying to figure out, well, what is realistic for us to be at our best. But I'm not sure you're going to get to that point if, again, the head coach, the NBA it's a hard league now to say to superstar players, you're not going to play, right? But I do think within reason, especially if you do have, at least on paper, some other options, even if they're less experienced options, that's a hammer that this coach might just have to start using. And it's almost like he's gone the other way in his stubbornness, because it's why I knew where my top 8 are, right? And I got to get them going.
Yeah.
And the only way I can get them going is they got to figure it out on the court themselves. I'm not sure I buy that at this point. Like I said, I would, because you never know what's going to stick, right? I'm not saying turn the team over to Luka Garza. I know that realistically, he ain't going to help your defense much. But whoever it is, I'd like to see, we're going to throw him out there in the second quarter for 7 minutes and see what happens and see if, maybe something interesting happens. And if it also makes it easier to say to one of the starters who's just not doing it or continues to be sloppy with the ball, well, we're going to mix and match. I thought part of the advantage of having more options was using those options. And I tend to come from the old, all right, play a bunch of people. Because here's the other thing. I mean, what's their record now? What are we? We 6 and 5?
Yep. Lost 2 in a row.
So, doing it the way we were doing it, I mean, if it's not like it's fashioned us this record where we're sitting at, 9 and 2 anyway, or 8 and 3, I'd say worry less about the record early. I tend to go with we're going to explore a lot early. Combinations, but every once in a while, I'm going to put a couple of kids out there. We don't want to expose them. We don't want to expect too much of them, but let's remember, we were told this team believed that either one or both of their number 1 picks could contribute immediately. Not maybe from day one, but early in the season. And then as you go and you see who I can count on, who I can't, what combination works, I actually like it better if then you start coming in a little bit. And we're not going to play 10 or 11 guys as much as we get into the teeth of the season. I kind of now have a better idea of where some of these guys are at. We still may be able to mix and match, and then there's injuries that get into it. But then cut it back that way rather than the approach we're taking. Because doing it this way, it's not like we're fashioning a record that puts us at the top of the conference anyway.
And they're losing to bad teams. Mm-hmm. The Miami game, Miami is not good. They're okay. They're heat culture, and Portland is dreadful. I was listening to Tom Crean, because as you know, I love listening to Tom Crean like you. I was listening on the way to the barn yesterday. And when I got out of the car, I felt really good about the Timberwolves because he, I think, tried to calm everybody down and say, I actually think they've come together a little bit more quickly than I would have thought. Now, he's a coach. He's going to say that.
Yes, to an extent.
But he said they've got a lot of good players. He loves DiVincenzo. He went back to the AAU days with DiVincenzo, right, and talked about some of the things that he could do. And so I left feeling very good about the current state of the Timberwolves. And then I got home from the barn and I got to watch the game, and it completely erased everything.
Right.
Because I would add another one. Too many guys have the complete green light to shoot whenever they want. And that's what got me annoyed again last night. We all love Nas. We all love Na. And by the way, Nas' shooting last night was great. It kept him in it. And Na, I think, was the one defensive player that did seem to be a little bit embarrassed by what Portland was doing last night. And I haven't always been the biggest Na guy, as you know.
We both have blown hot and cold on him, but he's been very good most of the season. Go ahead.
But there's too many guys that off of one pass can just shoot it.
Yes.
And then there's no one there to get the rebound, and then that's basically a turnover. And it's just, I just don't understand what they're trying to do at times. And if Ant's not just hitting 3 after 3 after 3, which he continues to do, they really don't have a lot of flow like Finchie talks about. And it just, to me, it all goes back to just the defensive part of it and the rebounding part of it. That's been a trend for 11 games where they just give up too easily. They make it too easy on the other team in both of those. And that has nothing to do with whether or not you needed to do a team building exercise in training camp and get to know each other.
Two things. I think we talked about one of the advantages potentially of Randall was a little bit of the bully ball thing, but that's offensively. The reality is if you want to talk about that kind of toughness and tenacity, you need that on the defensive end if this team's going to come close to matching what it was defensively a year ago, and they're not in any way, in any consistent sense, getting it. And I also, you mentioned, I'm glad you brought him up because I was almost ready to punt on him. You got DiVincenzo. He missed a lot of shots last year. You love him defensively, but I don't know. You got to have, he needs to be a better two-way player. Now, I don't even know what his shooting statistics are so far this season. I feel like from an eye test standpoint, he's been shooting better, at least in stretches. Nikhil. But I will say, to me, he's the one guy I think who should be rewarded right now. Because, and that gets back to, I think Finchie has told us all along that each season is an individual deal, and you may have the same people, but you got to start the whole thing over. I think he's got to mean that. And by saying that, I'm saying, I don't care who did what last year. Here's what I see right now. I see among our perimeter players one guy who is consistently committed to the defensive bit and who actually, in streaky periods, has helped us offensively, too.
He's shooting almost 50% from 3.
Okay, there it is. So a much better performance than last year, and I doubt he can hold up to it. But to me, that's what you do. If you mean what you say about last year was last year, then to me, you reward, and I don't know, do you start him? I'm not sure, but I'd say, I'm not taking him down the stretch. I'm not taking him out. He's earned a little extra confidence, and I'm trying to send a message to some of my other players who are more accomplished, who are obviously better known, to say, I need more of that. That's more of what I see, and I'm not going to worry so much about what the pecking order is supposed to be. That's, to me, how you reestablish that. Boys and girls, this is a new year, and whatever you've done in the past is great. We know you have that equity, but I got to see it in front of me. And from Walker, I feel like you're seeing more of that consistency than any other guy at this point, right?
Yeah.
He looks to me like he's got a singleness of purpose. Is that the term? He just looks like he's saying, I'm going to give you what you remember you got from me defensively last year. And I don't know if he's trying to send a message to the other team or just saying I want to stay on the court. To me, that's where you start. Pick a player who's more consistently doing something and commit a little bit deeper to him, and don't worry so much about how other people's minutes or egos might be affected. Speaking of ego, Glen Mason right around the corner. We'll talk college football and much more with him.
Fan. It's time for another edition of Mace in Your Face. Now, along with college football immortality, Glen Mason, here's Dan Barreiro.
Honestly, I'm beginning to wonder if I need to reconsider my position suggesting that Lou Nanne is the most becoming the most non-Minnesotan / adopted Minnesotan because he's never here.
That's fair.
I think he's now running neck and neck with our next guest, who is apparently trying to catch him. I assumed we were going to have Mace in my face in studio from now all the way till Christmas.
That was the plan.
And guess what? He's not here yet. Again, I don't know how specific he's going to get into the details of this trip. That's up to him. It's his business. I happen to know a lot. I hinted at you at some of it, but it's up to him if he wants to go
essentially
public or private about it.
Essentially moving forward.
I'm an open book. I'm not like you guys.
You are?
You know, you ask me a question, you get an honest answer.
Okay, so what exotic island are you about to land on?
Well, you know, last week when I was in, and you said, see you next week, I said, yeah, but things change. In football, there's such change.
Right.
And, anyway, and you guys are responsible for this, why I'm not there in an indirect way.
Okay.
You're welcome.
I say that because I was planning, and then I'm in Naples right now, but I'm going to Antigua, and I'm going there because you convinced me to participate in the auditions for the Golden Bachelor. So that's where I'm going.
So you're going to end up all expenses paid, private jet paid, on some fancy resort in some fancy Caribbean island. Is that correct?
Well, you wouldn't expect the Golden Bachelor to have to fly commercial now, would you? Come on.
That's a good point.
We're not that far off from Mace just having to hand the phone to Louie for the weekly.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to put them on the same day, and they're just going to hand each other the phone, whoever's going first. We're not that far off from this.
Here's the deal. Let me ask you this, because I don't know the answer. If I'm in the Golden Bachelor category, what category would he be in?
Platinum, maybe?
Platinum, yeah.
I'd say platinum.
Yeah.
Platinum, yeah.
I think that would probably make some sense.
Before I forget, though, I got a message for Guardsy.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
You know my newfound friend down in Tampa, David Deno?
Yeah.
I stopped there, and he hosted dinner, which was great. Well, he was very concerned with the Gophers losing to Rutgers.
Ooh.
And he wanted me to call and make sure I inspired Guardsy to get them to bounce back. In his mind, if Guardsy does a good job, they should be able, after an off week, beat Penn State and then beat Wisconsin Badgers and then end up in Tampa in a great bowl. And if that happens, he has generously offered to host a dinner for all of us at Fleming Steakhouse, which
Whoa.
I can tell you is outstanding.
Yeah.
So it's
I was thinking
all
about that.
on Guardsy's shoulders.
I was thinking about that fourth quarter after the Gophers fumbled and they were about to go down. I said, I'm not going to get to go to Fleming's this year because I had that in the back of my mind when you were setting that up a few weeks ago. So they got to get it done. I'm with you.
I still have a hard time, and I'm not talking about the Gophers losing to Rutgers, but even being a long Big Ten guy and also growing up in the Garden State and the State University of New Jersey, Rutgers, to think that they're in the Big Ten. I think back to when I was in high school getting recruited. And interesting tidbit, Bill Burns was my high school principal, and Frank Burns, his brother, was the head coach at Rutgers. And I still remember there was a number of guys in the high schools right where I lived that were getting, recruited by ACC schools, SEC schools, Big Ten schools, and they put everybody together, and there was a really nice gentleman. His name was Jim Taji, was the assistant coach, and he came in to give a sales pitch about why we should stay at Rutgers, stay at home and go to Rutgers. And he came in and he looked at us and he said, you guys aren't interested in going to Rutgers, are you? And we said no, and he said, didn't think so. I'll see you. And that was the extent of it.
Man, that pretty much says it all right there, for sure. By the way, a couple people they actually believe you are indeed trying out for the Golden Bachelor. You sold it very well. We've suggested it could be in your future. At one point, you seemed kind of bored with all that discussion, and now you seem to be warming to it. But you can confirm that this trip, this could end up being a very productive Golden Bachelor trip for you. Who's to say who you meet on that exotic island? But going in, this isn't for TV purposes, right? This is a nice little unexpected vacation refuge for Mason and your face.
Yeah, you never know what happens. I've never been accused of turning down a good opportunity. You know that.
No, it's an interesting way to put it.
Some people might say on some occasions even a bad opportunity.
Yeah, well, we all have our ups and downs, Mace. There's no question about that. I'm beginning to think that we should just not even bother talking football during this segment. Maybe we just should make it about your travel adventures, your adventures in love. Maybe that's all. People may not be as interested in the football right now as they are in living vicariously through your adventures.
Well, it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it, Danny. And it's kind of come my way lately, and I just suck it up, and I just go wherever they want me to go.
Yeah, that's it. You're more than accommodating. I've always said that about you. There's no question about that. If you have questions for Mace, whatever they are, if they're Golden Bachelor related, challenges in relationships, Mace, I'm sure, would be glad to offer some advice free as well there.
Oh yeah, I've had a lot of success in that area. My advice would be worth a lot.
Well, that doesn't. Perhaps you can take from your ups and downs and pass along lessons to say, don't do as I did. That's also possible. You have that going for you. Maybe, you talk somebody else off the ledge or say, don't do that. I was stupid enough to do that 8 years ago. Don't do what I did, right? Might.
Yeah, well, just make a list.
That's it. 64686 is the Bradshaw and Bryan KFAN text line. You mentioned Penn State. Now, the Gophers are off this weekend. My Hoosiers are off this weekend. They both have big games, right? They get an extra week to prepare. Indiana, of course, at Ohio State. And the Gophers will be hosting Penn State. Guardsy, what is the I think IU is like about a 10-point underdog, last I checked, in Columbus, in that range. What about Gophers Penn State? I had not checked that. I'm assuming Penn State's favored, but by how much?
I'll have to look a couple of weeks in advance here, so give me a second.
I just figured maybe being as plugged in, you might have heard a thing or two.
A little snack in that other room while I'm not there?
Yeah, he's got a lot of duties. He's got a lot of things he's got to do. I'm going to guess.
Well, I don't have the betting lines just right here, and I haven't looked because the game isn't for a week from Sunday.
It wasn't like I was putting you on the meat grinder. I'm
responding to Mace.
Okay. I just thought maybe because you cover the team, you were curious yourself and you'd heard stuff about, here's how it's working.
Thinking. Yeah.
I'm going to say
the team has an off week. That doesn't mean you have an off week.
Well, that's it. That's a good way of putting it. I'm going to say Penn State right now is favored by 6 over the Gophers. He's still looking. Indiana, like I said, I think I've seen it like 8, 9, 10 points.
What is Penn State, number 4 in the country or something?
Good question. I don't even know. Are they that high? I'm not sure they should be, but it's happened again this week, Mace. You alluded to it last week. Indiana is getting a lot of heat because, now they moved up this week to number 5. And there's a lot of bitterness from SEC, the usual locations, because of their schedule, because no one wants to just take them as seriously. They eked out. I mean, it was a dangerous game against Michigan. So what do you say to those? I mean, how do we look at Indiana? Do we look at them now? Yeah, okay, you found a way to win, but it wasn't an impressive second half at all. Your offensive line got dominated in the second half of that game. Your offense couldn't do anything, and it felt like you're kind of holding on for dear life. So do you think that gives sustenance to the critics of Indiana, or as a former coach, do you say they won the game?
SEC guys, wait a minute. Yeah, but they won. It's not like losing to Vanderbilt. I mean, come on. And, what people fail to realize, we're still talking about college-age kids. This 12-game season is long.
Yeah.
And you don't know what the other stories are there. It might have been midterms at Indiana or something like that.
Right.
But it is hard each and every week. We're talking about kids. I mean, you look at it and the same thing. I didn't watch the game, but, the Vikings, they won ugly, but they won, and then you move on. And so that's history. And the only thing that matters right now is the next game. And for Indiana, it's Ohio State. But let's just dream for a second, speculate. Let's say that Indiana wins one of their last 2 games. They play out of Ohio State. Let's say they lose that game, but they play well. and then they beat Purdue, which is not a very good football team, and they finished the season 11-1. Well, that would probably put Ohio State in Oregon in Indianapolis playing for the Big Ten championship because they turn on more TV sets nationally.
Yeah, right.
Assuming Ohio State beats Michigan, well, then you'd have to venture to say that Indiana probably wouldn't be one of the top 4 teams. They wouldn't get a bye, but they'd probably host a home game in the 12-game playoff. That would be interesting, wouldn't it?
It would be very interesting for sure. And there has been a lot of conversation about that as well. Any luck at all? Or maybe there just is no line yet because
it's not, none of the sites that I usually go to has a line for next week's games.
Okay, they just
I already, I worked a little bit harder at college football than Guardia. I saw that they've already got a line out for the Ohio State-Michigan game. Ohio State favored by 14, and that's a couple weeks from now.
14, interesting. 14, does that sound about right to you?
No, it sounds like a lot of points.
It's a lot of points, isn't it?
Rivalry game.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It is worth noting. I don't know. I mean, you get into this game of like I said, evaluating teams, and because Indiana's schedule has not been particularly good. They're ranked 103rd strength of schedule, by the way. Is that how bad it is?
Curious.
Yeah, that's not very good. But again, on the other hand, I was reading my guy Rick Bozich, who's kind of trying to comment on all this stuff, whether the Hoosiers are getting too much heat or not enough. He mentions if you go with a lot of sort of long-standing ratings formulas that used to be used regularly, there's 6, I guess, computer formulas, and that including the old bowl championship formula, a couple of others. And he notes that Indiana ranks as high as number 2 in the nation in one of them. They're number 4 behind Oregon, Ohio State, and Alabama in the 88 poll composite rankings. They've already beaten the 2 programs that played the national championship game last season. Now, obviously not the same teams, but the schedule is fair game. On the other hand, I think people are getting maybe a little too hung up on it because there are by other sort of objective analyses, they, on the basis of the way they've dominated most teams they've played, actually still end up in pretty good shape, more than perhaps what some of these SEC snobs want to acknowledge.
Yeah, the SEC, they're already lobbying to see if they can get a 3-loss team in the college football playoff. They're conceding some of their powerhouses are probably going to lose another game. And let's face it, I mean, the SEC, that's a tough road to hoe down there in that schedule because they got a lot of good football teams in that conference. But let me just say this about Indiana. You see some teams I watch, and I think, they're winning because they got superior talent. I'm not saying they're that well coached. They just got better talent.
Yes.
When I've watched Indiana play, and I'm not saying they don't have talent, but that is a well-coached football team. I mean it. That guy is, I really didn't know Kurt Sigdetti until he came into the Big Ten. I knew his dad. His dad was a coach at West Virginia and some other places. But that coach has done just an unbelievable job, what he's being able to do, win games, and I want to say reignite Indiana football. It's never been ignited like this, ever.
No.
Now, I guess the challenge is to keep it going the rest of the season and then have some consistency and keep it going forward. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the Big Ten, a lot of coaches say, I hope he doesn't because year in and year out, when you used to look at Indiana, you thought, we're probably going to win that one.
Let me ask you a bye question, as in BYE. I assume that when you coached, there were byes. I don't remember them, but I assume that there were. You can, tell me. But do you think when a team, in your experience, how did you go about coaching differently if you had an off week? Did you view it as very much an advantage? Is that overrated as an advantage? And did you do different things? Is there an art, you think, to coaching a team when, okay, we're not playing every week right now. We've got 2 weeks off before we play again.
I think when you measure to success after a bye week, a lot of times you'll look at the teams that have had great success after a bye week. You know why? Because they're normally pretty good teams anyway, you know. And it all depends when that bye week would come and what kind of shape your team, was in. And you probably minimalize the approach, regardless if you were having a good season or a bad season. They give you an opportunity to rest your players, give them some time off because, like I said, it becomes an awful long season. It gives you a chance to go back and really evaluate yourself. What are we doing good? What are we doing poorly? What should we do differently? And more from a strategic place than anything, give everybody a chance to recharge the battery. Did we have off weeks when I was coaching? Yeah, I don't think we ever had 2 off weeks like they have now because of the expanded schedule. When I was a player at Ohio State, we never had an off week because you just went right through and you were done before Thanksgiving. And Big Ten used to brag about that. It was really important for all the players, really important that they get home for Thanksgiving. Well, I guess it's not important anymore. And but now with the expanded schedule of games, there's an opportunity to do that.
Any thoughts real quick on what took place at LSU? There was a controversy first about the tiger. They brought a tiger back. This one, I think, from Florida, and for the first time in I think over a decade. And then they played the game. And one of your favorite coaches who has the fake Southern accent got his ass handed to him pretty good by Alabama. And it's almost as entertaining to watch him chew other people out on the sidelines as his team is melting down as it is to see his team melting down. What did you make of that, Brian Kelly and LSU?
Well, I think they've always had a tiger, but Norty's outside the stadium. They brought him inside this time. I don't know the significance of that. This is the first night home game that Brian Kelly has lost there. I think he's the winningest coach in Notre Dame, history. You talk about his sideline demeanor. If you remember back a number of years ago, I mean, he was a raving maniac at Notre Dame. And then I don't know if someone talked to him, whatever, but he was almost subdued. And the TV people are always used to, every time anything went wrong, put the camera right on him because they thought he'd go crazy. And I used to watch him. I mean, he was so subdued. I thought, geez, I wonder if they got him sedated on the sideline. I don't know. But he has his moments now at LSU. And, that's a great fan base down there. I'll tell you a quick story. When I was at Ohio State one year, we went down and visited LSU during spring practice. And the coach of the team then was a guy named Jerry Stovall.
Oh, yeah.
Who was a former player. And they had a good season. And so after practice, we're in the locker room, and they started wheeling these laundry carts full of meat, steaks and roasts and all this stuff for all the coaches to take home. And we were all saying, what's that? And one of the guys said, they don't do that at Ohio State. They don't give you, free meat. We said, no, we don't get that. And I'll never forget Jerry Stovall says, yeah, well, at LSU, he says, you have a good year, they wheel the meat in. He says, you have a bad year, I'll be in that cart and they'll wheel me out. And you know what? That's exactly what happened to him the next year.
Wow. I don't think you told that story before. Jerry, he played too, wasn't he a player? You said Stovall?
Yeah, he was an LSU player.
That's exactly what I thought. Hey, by the way, can you clarify something else for us here real quick? This came up yesterday, and they thought you'd be the perfect person to know, or I thought you were. So is there some Ohio State band controversy where they do a bit where it looks like basically that the band forms the shape of a gigantic bear allegedly pooping on the Michigan logo? Do you know anything about? Is this like go back to when you were there? Or is this something new?
No. I saw something on social media that I was kind of surprised because they take great pride in that band, and that band works. You have no idea how hard they work, but I have not ever known them ever to do anything that wasn't classy. That would really be a departure, I think, of the tradition there. So I'm kind of surprised. I don't know if the report I saw was accurate or not, but it was there.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. I thought your school was above that.
The Ohio State
Yeah,
University?
I mean, the Ohio State. I mean, I didn't think you needed to stoop to. And again, I know it's the rivalry. It's Michigan. It's the rivalry game. But I was very disappointed by it. And then I thought, well, maybe I missed something. Maybe it goes way back to when Mace was there. But you're saying this is something relatively new. I think.
That's the first time I've ever heard anything like that. Normally, they're very creative, and normally they honor something. It's always, very, very positive. Hey, by the way, I gave you an offer a week ago, you and Guardsy. I still haven't heard anything about, I get bad mouthed all the time, but I said, throw some dates out there. I'd like to host you guys, but I haven't heard a word.
Well, you're gone again. I mean, you're never here anyway. What's the difference? It's irrelevant when you're out of town.
You didn't give me any dates.
Oh,
so you just
what,
left?
am I supposed to sit around and wait? I mean, I can't, I'm not a mind reader.
No, that's true. Well, I'll talk to Guardsy about it. Guardsy's got the busier schedule of the two of us. He's got 8 kids. He's got 8 jobs. And, he's gone a lot. So it may be difficult to accommodate. But I hope we figure something out for sure sometime between now and the new year.
The other thing, remember, he told me, he committed on your show when I complained for years now that when I look at Huntington Bank Stadium, which is a great stadium, they have all these great players, but they're all ancient. And there's 3 guys that are national award winners. Greg Esslinger, who won the Outland Trophy. That's the Heisman Trophy for linemen, plus the Remington Award.
Yeah, right. He was going to.
And you had Matt Spaeth, who won the Mackey Award, which is the best tight end in the country, and Tyrone Carter, who won the Thorpe Award, the best defensive back. And Guardsy told me he had inside sources that was going to get done, that those names were going to go up there. To my knowledge, I haven't been in that stadium this year. I don't think it's take place yet.
I don't think it has. My info is still correct, though. They're trying to figure something out. They want to do some kind of Wall of Fame or Ring of Honor.
How many committees does this have to go through? How much bureaucracy?
Absolutely.
It's the U of M. I don't know. It must be some bureaucracy.
Yeah, that's probably it. I think there's a better.
I'm not buying it.
I think there's a better chance you're going to get that little TV back from your office than
the Goal Line Club.
Yeah, the Goal Line Club. Exactly it.
That's still a sore spot.
Well, it should be.
Why did you bring that up?
It should be. That's not right. Somebody's got that.
Yeah.
It's probably in some storage locker somewhere.
And you know what really bothers me more than anything?
What's that?
I had to give up my phone number, my cell phone number.
You did?
And the reason being was the person that made me do it said that they were concerned that after I was not working anymore, if I did something illegal using that phone, that it would come back to haunt him.
Come on,
believe that?
He didn't say. Was that Mother?
Absolutely.
Was that Mother Maturi?
No, he didn't say that. It was one of his underlings.
One of his minions, huh? One of the Maturi minions?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable.
Can you believe that?
No. Well, yeah, I can, actually. It's the University of Minnesota, man. I can believe anything. So when do you get on the private jet to the private island?
That will be Friday morning.
Yeah, good. It's good to be Mace, man.
That'd be Friday morning.
Good to. Did you did you pack your mesh thong?
My son.
Do we want to know? That's the question.
I got them all. I got a wide variety.
Okay.
Swimwear. I'm ready for anything.
I'm not at all surprised. Well, we'll eagerly look forward to you filing a report next week of how the trip went, the adventure as it played out, and then maybe even talk some football too.
Sounds good.
Safe travels. Have fun. Thanks, Mace.
Thank you.
Mace in Your Face, brought to you by our good friends at Carry Limo.